AJ, January 13th, based on the commissioner's investigation, you're suspended for the 2020 season and then subsequently fired by the Astros owner, Jim Crane. Now, since then, we've heard very little from people directly involved in the sign stealing scheme of the Houston Astros. You're sitting here now answering questions. Why?
So that takes me back to a really tough day. One, I still feel responsible, and I'll always feel responsible as the man out front. I was the manager, the leader. I was in charge of the team. I put out a statement that day. It was a very emotional day for me and my family to apologize. But there's something different about doing it on camera and putting a face to an apology and saying I'm sorry to the league, to baseball, to the fans, to the players, to the coaches. I was the man out front. And I felt like it's my responsibility to put my voice out there and tell a little bit of the story to hopefully start the next step, which is getting past this and getting into the best part of baseball, which is the players in the game.
What are you taking responsibility for?
You know, it happened on my watch, and I'm not proud of that. I'll never be proud of it. I didn't like it, but I have to own it because in a leadership position, I mean, the commissioner's office made it very, very clear the GM and the manager were in position to make sure that nothing like this happened, and we fell short.
The investigation went on for 3 months. You're probably thinking in your head, wondering where it's going, what's going to happen to me. When it came down, were you surprised? I
felt responsible from the beginning, and so I knew there was going to be punishment. And if you feel responsible as a leader, like, punishment's going to happen. I didn't know to what extent. I didn't know where the commissioner was going to come in on it. And I was focused entirely on that and our team. I wanted to protect our team. I wanted to shelter our team from everything. And so I knew I was going to be suspended to some extent. And this was something that was never happened before, so nobody really knew how many games or what was going to happen. But when I got the news that it was a full year, that was a tough blow. I mean, that's taking me away from the sport that I love, the sport that I've been around for over 2 decades. After that, when I met with Jim and subsequently lost my job, that created a whole nother part of the day that I didn't anticipate.
Jim Crane met with you in person and told you?
Yeah, I was in, that day I went downtown to, which is normal in the off season for me, and I was at the stadium. And I was waiting for players to kind of show up for their rehab or their workouts or what was ever going on. And I got notified that was the day that we were gonna get the letter, and it was gonna come via email. And so I waited and got the email. And then I was asked to come up, or Jim called me and said, hey, can you come down to Houston? Because I live about 30 miles north of Houston. And I said, well, I'm already here. And he said, come on upstairs. And so I went up and had a very emotional conversation with Jim. So it happened fast, and then the press conference happened shortly after the meeting with me. But I was able to have a face-to-face with Jim, you know, both of us being emotional that it had gotten to that point. And then, you know, then I had to focus on my family, get my kids out of school before it hit their phones. You know, things you never have to think about until it happens. Like, I didn't want it to pop up on my daughter's phones at school. Needed to tell my wife and then get everybody home.
Take me back to that moment, because your world was just rocked just by being suspended for a year. And now the owner calls you to his office and tells you face to face, you're fired. The man who brought us to the 2017 World Series, you're not coming back here.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Tough. That was tough. I mean, it was tough. Tough news to hear. You know, we had to move on. Like, I thought, you know, we had to make things better. I think you go into, as a leader, you go into this frame of mind, this mode of, like, protection. You want to make sure your coaches know, make sure your family knows, make sure, like I said, my wife and kids know, make sure the closest people to me know. I was more focused on that. I didn't really even think about me.
The commissioner's report makes it clear that you were not an active participant, that you did not endorse it. In fact, it makes a point to say that twice you damaged the monitor that was used to steal signs. Is that true, that you twice somehow, and you can explain that maybe in detail, damage those monitors as a signal to players that you did not endorse what was happening?
Yeah, I did, and I didn't initiate or I didn't endorse it, but I was the manager, and I think there's a responsibility when you're in a position to end it. I think my mindset at that point was to demonstrate that I didn't like it.
So what did you do?
I hit it. I mean, a bat. I mean, I didn't like it.
You took a bat to it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. In hindsight, I would have had a meeting. I should have had a meeting and addressed it face forward and really ended it. Leadership to me is often about what you preach. It's like your pillars of what you believe in. Leadership's also about what you tolerate. And I tolerated too much. And that outlash of angst that I wanted people to know that I didn't like it. I should have done more. I should have addressed it more directly. I mean, it's complicated when you're talking about a team and all the inner workings of a team, but in reality, I just feel like I could have done more looking back, especially the leader that I feel like I am in 2019 versus where I was in 2017 and where I've grown. But it's always easier to look back and wish you could have done more.
So the commissioner's report said it started with, in terms of relaying signs, there was whistling, there was clapping, there was yelling. Eventually they settled on the system with the banging of the trash can. You're the manager, you're in the dugout. You have to be hearing the banging going on, correct?
Yeah, no, I heard it. I don't think you process it right away as like you hear a lot of things, but I heard it.
So at some point though, you begin to process what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And you said, obviously you know it was wrong. The question is, why don't you step in at that point and say, guys, knock it off?
I wish I would have. I really do. I think that's a big question that I'm going to process over what's now a season-long suspension. I think it's something that I've continued to think about, certainly through the investigation and when you have to openly talk about it. I wish I would have done more. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and we were wrong.
So I wanted to show you the September 21st game against the White Sox. Danny Farquhar is on the mound. If you haven't seen it, this is Evan Gattis' at bat. And then the system the Astros have in place is if there's banging on the trash can, the hitter knows an off-speed pitch is coming. Why don't you take a look at this?
Evan Gattis taking a pitch for a ball. It's 1-0. Gattis has done well this year as a pinch hitter. On the ground, foul. Farquhar gets Gattis for the first out of the 8th.
So when you see that, how much does it hurt?
A lot. I was wrong.
So this group obviously trusted you. You had trust with them. You grew with this group of players. You mentioned taking a bat to the monitor twice. That would seem to be, to me anyway, an overt signal to your players that you were not on board with this. But let me read you something the commissioner wrote in the report. That the players stated that if manager A.J. Hinch told them to stop engaging in the conduct, they would have immediately stopped. Do you believe that to be true?
That's hard to hear. I hope so. No, I hope so. I hope that as in a manager position,
hitting the monitor with a bat wasn't enough.
Clearly, it wasn't, and I think that's what I look back at as something I could have done better. I think as you grow in confidence, right? As you grow as a manager, if you look at my career, I'm much more confident today than I was in 2017. Where I fell short is I didn't believe that at the time. Otherwise, I probably would have handled it differently, and I should have.
In the commissioner's mind, there's before and after September 15th, 2017. That's when he put out the memo warning teams about the misuse of technology to steal signs. After that, now everybody's on notice. He said in his report, though, that went to all the general managers, that your general manager, Jeff Luhnow, did not circulate that memo, nor did he come downstairs to say, hey guys, are we in compliance of this memo? And he said if either one of those things had happened, we are not here today. Did you not know and did not find out from your general manager about the memo?
So I don't remember the exact date. We didn't talk about it, and the memo didn't come to me. But that doesn't mean that it was right to do what we did.
One of your players is probably the reason, or big reason, why we're sitting here, Mike Fiers. A member of the 2017 Astros came out on the record and identified the trash can scheme. First of all, what was and what is your relationship with Mike Fiers?
I haven't spent a lot of time focusing on the emotional side of the reaction to Mike, you know, telling this story and getting this message out. I wish I would have had an environment and a culture that was better for him to have come to me in real time. And I wish I could have done better to maybe get that nudge, that maybe I needed help to get that nudge to make better leadership decisions. So I focus on that. I understand there's going to be people on both sides of the argument on what should have happened or what could have happened. But my relationship, I haven't talked to Mike since 2018, 2019. Every time you play somebody. But I'm focused on how I could have had a better environment for this to be, you know, directed towards me earlier.
The commissioner's report makes it clear, you know, how this went down. And I'll quote, with the exception of Cora, the 2017 scheme was, quote, player-driven and player-executed. And yet we've heard so few of the Astros players come out and really take some ownership here. Dallas Keuchel was one who did. He said, it's just what the state of baseball was at that point in time. Was it against the rules? Yes, it was. And I'm personally am sorry for what's come about, the whole situation. There's some accountability there. Are you disappointed that your players, more of them, haven't stepped forward?
Well, I think players and anyone involved is going to have to handle it how they see fit. I know in time everyone's going to have to address this. Everybody's about to go to spring training, and players, coaches, managers, executives, everybody's going to have to address this in their own way. Obviously, some of the players that have come out in the fan fests and from around the league have weighed in, and others haven't. And I just know as the manager, I have to hold myself to that high standard and that accountability and that apology as well, because I was the manager. So I don't know how everyone's going to handle it. I haven't spent a lot of time on others. I've been so focused on making sure that I stand up as the manager, that while it was on my watch, and truly let people know that I'm sorry.
You know better than anybody that this team now is being painted with a much wider brush than what the commissioner applied to this. They, according to the report, investigated everything from 2016 through 2019. Their findings are limited to the 2017 regular and postseason and the 2018 regular season. And yet, in 2019, you were being asked about the Astros stealing signs, cheating, use whatever terminology you want. Do you remember that at Yankee Stadium, that series?
Well, I remember it.
AJ, what do you think of the allegations you guys were using whistles to try to gain some kind of advantage?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question. And I thought it would come up today. And it's, you know, we talked about this the other day. And in reality, it's a joke. But, you know, Major League Baseball does a lot to ensure the fairness of the game. There's people everywhere. If you go through the dugouts and the clubhouses and the hallways, there's like so many people around that that are doing this. And then, you know, when I get contacted about some questions about whistling, it made me laugh because it's ridiculous. And had I known that it would take something like that to set off the Yankees or any other team, we would have practiced it in spring training.
People have, you want to use the word conflated here, have attached anyway, that answer to what we now know about what happened in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
They saw this as something that was hypocritical on your part, where you're defending your club about not cheating. Explain what you meant.
We had played a couple games against the Yankees, and the issue in question was dating back to like game 1, and so I knew a little bit about it going in, and it wasn't until we got to New York when I was getting asked the question.
The accusation was that you were getting signs and relaying by whistling to them.
And we weren't. When I sat at that podium, I'm going to defend this group of players, and that's my job, and that's how I felt. And I didn't like the line of questioning. It was uncomfortable. I came out firm. It was talking about 2019, and then when the investigation started, and we started getting investigated about 2017, I know it looks bad because it kind of gets blurry in the entire organization over the course of a few years. But I believed in what we were doing in 2019.
Now the hindsight of looking at the Astros, people are looking at the Astros in a very different lens based on the commissioner's investigation, which includes now, in their eyes, the 2019 season. We've heard reports about Astros players wearing buzzers underneath their uniforms. That's how they're getting the signal, what pitch is coming. I know the commissioner's office looked into this and they determined there was nothing to it. Can you assure us there were no buzzers or anything like that being used?
The commissioner, we got investigated for 3 months, and the commissioner's office did as thorough an investigation as anyone could imagine was possible. I mean, I know he mentioned the emails and the texts and the messages, and I believe them.
Here's a ground ball right side, could do it. The Houston Astros are world champions.
Every fan, I think, has asked since this story broke. It's more difficult for you because it's way more meaningful. The Astros won the World Series in 2017. Based on what we know now, what we know from the commissioner's investigation, is that championship tainted?
It's a fair question, and I think everyone's going to have to draw their own conclusion. I hope over time and the demonstration with the talents of this team, the players, the careers that are being had. We have some of the best players in the entire sport all together on the same team. I hope over time it's proven that it wasn't, but I understand the question. It's a fair question, and people are going to have to draw their own conclusions. Unfortunately, we opened that door as a group, and that question may never be answered. We may never know, and we're going to have to live and move forward and be better in the sport. But unfortunately, no one can really answer that question. I can't pinpoint what advantages or what happened or what exactly would have happened otherwise. But we did it to ourselves.
So as this thing has played out and so publicly, and you've got a chance probably more than you wanted to look back on those years and what happened, what's your biggest regret?
I should have had a more forceful interaction at the appropriate time, which would have been right when I found out. I look back at all the different things that I've had to do through the course of my career, playing, managing, front office, so many sort of crisis moments or big moments that feel like it's the moment for leadership. And I feel good about them. And in this one, I feel like I fell short. And you know, as a leader, what I've learned and how I've grown and the bigger stages that I've been on, I know how I would respond today. But there aren't a lot of second chances in real time like that. And I regret that.
Not only did you lose your job, but really your place literally in the game. By this ruling, you're not allowed to be in a major league ballpark, a minor league ballpark. You cannot travel anywhere on behalf of a major league team, such as scouting, say, amateur players. You've been in baseball your whole life, AJ.
Mm-hmm.
What's this going to be like where you are persona non grata in the game that you love?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I know my suspension and termination was on January 13th. I really feel like it starts almost officially, this weekend when I'm supposed to leave for spring training, and it's the first spring training in 24 years that I haven't been involved in. And some of my actions and inactions have contributed to that, and that's what I'm here to own. But I'm all about baseball. Like, I love baseball. And, my goal is to contribute back to baseball again. I don't know what that means, but I think it's going to be such a unique year to gain a little bit of balance, to gain some perspective, to learn from this entire thing, and come out better for it. I'm very proud of what I've done in baseball. I'm going to miss it terribly. I'm going to watch as many games as I can because that's what I am. I'm baseball 24/7, and but I'll take it seriously, the fact that I've been suspended based on the position that I was in and what went on under my watch, and I will come back stronger for it, and I will come back a better leader, and I will be willing to do whatever it is to help the game be better.
Do you want to manage again?
I do. I think it's going to be up to other people to determine whether or not I'm the right fit, but I love managing. I love players. I love the competition. What I've learned about myself over these few years of doing it is that player-manager relationship, that coach-manager relationship, the front office. I loved being in the center hubcap of that wheel that makes it all go round. That comes with a lot of responsibility, and I've been proud of how I've handled it. I'm not proud of talking about, the issues in 2017 with the sign stealing, but I'm not going to let that deter me from my hope and desire to have a long career in Major League Baseball doing what I love.
Your suspension carries through the last game of the World Series. After that, you confident we'll see you in a uniform in 2021?
I hope so. I mean, obviously there's, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk today prior to spring training is because I know the players are going to have to talk, and the manager's going to have to talk, and the coaches are going to have to talk, and executives. The other reason is, I'm going to serve my suspension quietly. It's going to be a long summer. And, I don't blame anyone, but myself. And, when that time comes and that season has passed and the playoff series and the World Series has ended, I'll be ready emotionally, physically, for anything.
AJ, by coming out, answering questions, what would you want an Astros fan, a baseball fan, to really take away from this?
One, that I'm really sorry for everybody. I mean, my personality is to try to take the burden for everybody else. I want everybody around me to be better. This happened on my watch. I take it really seriously. I've had unbelievable conversations with major league managers and some of my players around the game, executives. And I want people to know that I care, that I'm not just, blowing it off and shrugging my shoulders and saying that I'm upset because we got caught. It's much bigger than that. I want my daughters to see me hold up my accountability and take responsibility for being in this position. I want my family my wife and kids to be proud of how I handled this. But more importantly, for the Astros fans and the baseball fans, the supporters, the detractors, I just want to be real and be relatable in this situation that made a mistake, I wish I could do it over again, like many of us in life wish we could do something over again. And that I will work tirelessly to restore the integrity that's needed in this game, and the integrity that's already in this game. And I believe in baseball. I love baseball. And I can't wait to see what's next for the sport.